All right. Welcome, everyone. Hopefully that was the most seamless transition we've got. We were ready 10 minutes early. We even sat down. We made a few jokes. So welcome. It is, good question, what is the date? 13th of October, 2021 here in Melbourne. Very excited. We are what we hope is only a few weeks away from actually being allowed to get back out in life. Our counterparts up the road in New South Wales had their Freedom Day this week. I was very, very sad to see a lot of my friends and family at the beach. I mean, albeit they've been at Bondi Beach every single day throughout the lockdown, but nonetheless, they were there legally and laughing at me and the rest of us stuck here in Melbourne. But never fear, we are hopefully only weeks away from joining them. We've got an action-packed session for you today. A lot to get through. So very, very excited to get stuck into it. And let's have a look. All right. So those of you that have joined before will know that I always like to start with a question. Now, I want to know from everyone out there, and I want you to just reflect on this quickly. What is more important? Is it information or knowledge? So just take a moment, have a think about it. Information or knowledge? What do you think is more important? All right, I'll give you a couple more seconds. Point your finger on the screen. Keep yourself honest. Those of you that attend all the time, you should know this answer. You should be able to recite my whole script on this, hopefully. All right, time is up. The answer is knowledge. Now, this is really, really important concept. I want to take a moment to just run through this with you. So information is organized data about something. Knowledge, on the other hand, is an understanding either through experience or education or both of it. So, it's not information in its own right, which is important. It's having that information and being able to turn that into knowledge. So, what I mean by that is there is a ton of information out there. We are in the information age. There is no shortage of sources of information, but you need the skills and the experience and the training as to how to work out what information is important, how to understand that information and turn it into knowledge, because it is information turned into knowledge, which is what is going to help you. And that is one of the most important concepts, and we call that actionable knowledge. So today's session is all about helping you farm through all that information. I'm going to throw a ton of it at you and really hopefully answer all your questions and sort of help to give you a bit of a framework as to how to break down all that information and turn it into knowledge, so that hopefully you can be doing that yourself and really understand that concept, because that is what is going to make the biggest difference to you out there, no matter where you are in that home buying journey. So who am I? My name is James Maitland. I once was just like you. Unfortunately, I didn't have a photo of one of my first properties I lived in. This is not quite to the extreme, but just like many of you out there, I've been a first home buyer before. I've been in many rental houses. I've been in rundown places. I've been in share houses. I've been in places that are disgusting, that are dirty, overcrowded and terrible, and just been getting from pay to pay and having no sense of how can I actually ever even think about saving up enough money to have a deposit for a home. I know the struggles. I've been through the struggles. I've been there. Now, today is a very, very different story. I now own 11 properties, including my own home, and obviously the rest are investment properties. And I've brought and sold multiple properties over the last 2 decades. So, I understand the struggle. I've been there. I've worked through it. I've come out the other side, and I now own a ton of investment properties, and I have a really, really good understanding of what it takes to get there. So, what I bring to the table today and hopefully can impart on you is, the understanding, having been through the process. It didn't just fall in my lap. I had to work hard. I went with only $3 in my bank account for 2 to 3 weeks before the next pay, working out how to buy the stale loaves of bread to get by, finding the way to save that money, getting into my first property, leveraging that and getting through that process, and now sitting comfortably with a large, large portfolio of investment properties, delivering a great rental return while I sleep. So I bring you that experience. I also bring my training as a chartered accountant by trade. Whilst I don't practice, I do understand the numbers. I understand how important it is to be able to reconcile those numbers with the emotional needs of what you're looking at for a home. So today's session, it's going to be fantastic. We're going to run for about 35 to 40 minutes. We're going to go through two key sections. So the first section is going to be the information portion. I'm going to run through what's happened over the last 7 days, give you a few key bits of information that are out there that I think are important for you to understand. And that will go for sort of 5 to 10 minutes. Then we're going to move on to the main section, which is the knowledge section. And that's where we're going to take all of your questions live, run through all your answers, help you break down the information, and hopefully give you a good understanding so that you know what you should be doing with that information and what actions you should be taking to make sure you've set yourself up well. So that'll go for about 20 to 30 minutes, depending on how many questions there are and how excited and how involved everyone on the line is today. And then we'll wrap it up, and I'll let you know that it doesn't matter where you are in that journey. So for those of you that are thinking, oh, no, I'm just a first home buyer, this won't help, or I'm an experienced investor with multiple properties, it doesn't matter where you are in that journey. This will assist you in either way, because it is a foundation concept of this concept of actionable knowledge that will help you wherever you are in that journey. So I guarantee you'll get value out of today's session. Be involved, participate, be active, and you'll get really, really good value out of today. All right, so been a big week. A lot has been going on. As I said, most people in New South Wales, you probably didn't care about anything else because you're just enjoying your freedoms, getting a haircut, getting the grey coloured out of your hair. If you're unlucky like me, Lucas looks fantastic. I don't know how he still does it through here. I've really struggled with the hair and so forth, but hopefully that will be coming to an end soon. But there's a lot that happened in the real estate market around the country in the last 7 days. Big news, $9 trillion is now what total value of residential real estate is worth in Australia. I want to drill down into those stats. I'm not going to go at any more. Really interesting information that's come out of that. Big talk over the last couple of weeks has all been about what they call macro-prudential, blah, 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 jibber jabber, whatever you want to say. Basically, it is the banks, teachers telling them they need to slow down the amount of lending that they're doing. What are they doing? How does it affect you? We're going to run through that. We did mention some of it last week, so I want to go through that in detail. What is the flow-on effect we've seen into the market? Rental vacancy rates. Of course, those of you that are investors will know if you're in the two major capital cities, Sydney and Melbourne. It's been a tough last 18 months, but the Prime Minister finally said international travel is opening back up. There's talk now about having super immigration happening over the next few years to catch up what we've lost. So all of those are going to be driving the rental market, and we'll run through how you can set yourself up for that. Big news. Victorian government thinks investing in real estate is such a good deal. They now want to co-invest with you. Interesting scheme that they put together and they announced last Friday. We'll run through all those details as well. So a lot has gone on over the last 7 days. And I really look forward to getting all your questions about these and whatever else has been troubling you over the last week. All right, so before I get in, as always, it's a good barometer as to just how things are going. It is not the be-all and end-all, but it's obviously something we get weekly, is the auction results. So big weekend. We finally saw the first time during these last lockdowns here in Sydney and Melbourne that we had what we call a Super Saturday. So you can see here in Melbourne, there was almost 1,400 auctions that went through or were scheduled for last weekend. Stellar outcome, there was 83.3% was the national clearance rate. So despite the fact that we're still in lockdown here in Melbourne, the fact that you can now go and inspect one-on-one has really started to see that market coming back. Great result, 82%. Sydney, fantastic again, 83%. Look at that, Brisbane, 81, Adelaide, 89, Perth, that looks like a good result. Doesn't have a number on there. I can't read that out for you. And the rest of the countryside doing well as well. Now, obviously, as we always say, it is important to focus on the Sydney and Melbourne numbers, just because purely the total volume of auctions that's happening in the rest of the country is very minimal. So it's perhaps not as good a guide as you get from those main capital cities there. So, really good to see that happening. A lot of you that have been worried in the last sort of, 8, 9, 10 weeks, during the lockdown where Melbourne's had abysmal auction results. And I've been explaining to everyone that that's all to do with auctions being cancelled. You can now see the catch up that's going to happen as all of those people that were sellers cancelled their auctions, waited until we open up. You're going to see a huge amount of auctions happening over the next, what is it? I think we've only got about 11 weeks until Christmas hits. This graph here basically gives you so just to give you an idea, of the 1,357 odd auctions that were scheduled to go ahead in Melbourne, you can see here they got results for just over 1,100, and the breakup for 900 were successful and 200 didn't get a result. So that just gives you a good idea that when they give these preliminary numbers, they're still doing it on a, pretty close to almost all the results. So I expect to see the final number be very close to that low 80% mark, both nationally and here in Melbourne. Okay, for those of you that maybe have just jumped in and you didn't hear before, my name is James Maitland. I'm the General Manager here at Salvo, and I will be your host today. I'm very, very excited to get stuck into Section 2. I've helped create more than 11,500 homes for people over the last 2 decades. Here at Salvo, we are all about helping you create homes. We've got a number of different businesses and they all do different things, but they're all focused around that one key goal and that one key core belief inside us, which is helping you create a home no matter where you are. I said it at the top of the hour when we started. It doesn't matter whether you're a first home buyer or a seasoned investor. We can help you through these various different businesses that we've got, create that next home, up level the current investment property you've got, help you with managing it, help you buy your first home, right down to even if you are at the beginning stage, you've just finished high school and you're looking to move out of mum and dad's home for the very first time, we can help you create that home and that first rental property for yourself. Joined today on the panel, we're lucky to have, as always, Greg Arbeck, ton of experience, Jack Gian and Lucas Karras. These guys will be answering all of your questions. They've been going through all that information and they've got a ton of experience, wealth and knowledge to really share with you and help, hopefully, give you guys the help that you need to understand that information, break it down and create your own actionable knowledge database. So before we jump into Section 2, it is 2:40, so we'll go for probably about 25 odd minutes for those of you that want to just have an understanding when we'll finish. Those of you that want to know how to get involved, pop your questions in the Q&A. You can raise your hand, of course. Just given the technological limitations we've got, we can't live answer any questions for those of you joining us on Facebook. And obviously, feel free to use the chat function, but I can't keep on top of everything. So I'll just be focusing on your questions in the Q&A. And obviously, after this session's ended, if anything is left unanswered or you did pop something on the chat that we missed, we will try and come back to you, of course, and help you out with that. So if you haven't already done it, get your phone, put it on silent, turn it face down on your desk, focus, be involved, start peppering those questions in the Q&A. I've already seen a ton of them come up over the last 10 minutes. So thank you. I'm going to go through those first, but you will get the most value out of today's session by being involved, throwing your questions at us and really leveraging this time and getting the most out of it that you can. So while I have a chance to get through in detail, I want to ask the first question. I started with it, $9 trillion. That's not billion, that's not million, that is trillion. That is a ton of zeros. Those of you that have been watching Squid Games, I think it's even more than the prize money there. I don't think they hit trillions. That is a huge, huge figure. Jack, give us a breakdown. What is it? 9 trillion. How quickly has it grown? What is the size of that in market? I mean, that is a phenomenal size number.
Yes, James, as you said, the total value of the residential real estate in Australia has surged to 9.1 trillion. It has increased $1 trillion in just 5 months. So it's very, very fast growth. Not only that, the total value of the residential real estate in the country now is 28.2% higher than the value of the superannuation, the ASX, which is stock market, and the commercial real estate, the combination. So this is according to the core logic.
So, I remember it felt like it was only a few months ago. But yeah, so less than 5 months ago, I remember talking about the milestone of reaching $8 trillion in value. We've smashed through that by another $1 trillion. I mean, that is a huge number. But I think it's really interesting for those of you that didn't pick up what Jack was just saying then, there's always talk about listed shares, the stock market. It's big, it's huge. Everyone has to be in the stock market. But what Jack just explained is that the sum of the total value of superannuation, commercial real estate. So think about all those office buildings in the city, those shopping centers where all your wives and kids love to go and eat you out of house and home with their shopping, and all of those listed companies, BHP, Rio, the banks, everyone. The value of all of that together is still smaller than the value of residential real estate in this country. I mean, if there was ever a reason for you to not think you should be focused on having a home, if you've already got a home, upgrading that home or getting to an investment property, this is a reason why, because it is the biggest asset by far in Australia. So don't listen to people that say, oh, don't get into real estate, it's no good, do this, do that. Because I tell you what, there's 9 trillion reasons why everyone else in the country is doing it. Values have just gone up by $1 trillion in less than 5 months. It's a big, big industry and you've got to be involved in it. That's why we love it. That's why we do this every week. So Jack, just give us an idea. We always talk about, the key markets of Sydney and Melbourne. Where do they sit in terms of what sort of percentage of the market do those two take up in that 9 trillion figure?
Yes, the two biggest markets is New South Wales and Victoria, which is Sydney and Melbourne. It takes about 70% of the total value for the country. So, and the first one has to be the Sydney and the New South Wales. It takes 41.3% of nation's total value, which is 3.76 trillion. Of course, the second is Victoria, which is Melbourne, and we have a 28.1% of the nation's total value. The figure is 2.56 trillion. So
right, now I've cheated because I did this maths before, but those two add up to basically 70%. So you've got 70% of the nation's residential wealth in those two main states. And I think as well, Victoria, New South Wales is obviously clearly bigger than the rest of the countryside, excluding Victoria. Oh, obviously bigger than Victoria, but the rest of the countryside added together is still smaller than New South Wales and only just more or less equivalent to Victoria. So, that really shows why we always drill in and focus on those two key markets. Obviously, we love Melbourne the most because we're based here in Melbourne, albeit I did have a cry, as I mentioned at the start, about, not having our own Freedom Day this week, but that's okay. We'll get there and we'll get over it. But, there's a real clear reason that all that value is focused in on those two main states and obviously the capital cities there. Okay, so if that wasn't enough reason, or you were unsure about that, the other big news that we've seen over the last couple of weeks has obviously been APRA, who monitor the banks and tell them what to do. What have they done? They've made some changes out there. What are they? Can someone sort of break it down for everyone on the line today?
Yes, James. Look, the bank regulators have stepped in to make sure that borrowers will be able to repay the debts when interest rates eventually rise again.
So I saw a question before from Charlie. He was sort of meaning, I think he listened to me at the start. He wants to understand, what does that actually mean for people? Because, we always talk about it on a macro sense, but can you sort of break that down? What does that actually mean if you're a buyer out there? How will that affect you, and or how do you calculate it?
Okay, so look, more specifically, the banks now have to check whether borrowers can afford repayments at 3% more than the current rate. So it used to be 2.5%. So they've increased it now another 0.5 percentage point. So this would effectively reduce the maximum borrowing capacity by approximately 5%. And to put it in dollar value, just to make it more simple for our listeners out there. So if you've got an income of, let's say, $90,500, your borrowing capacity would be reduced by $30,000. So currently, you're able to borrow $578,000 based on that income. Yep. With the new regulations coming in, you'll be able to borrow $548,000 as a maximum.
All right. So I saw a question as well from Maxi here on the line, sort of saying, does that mean prices are going to go down if people can borrow less? We always talk about how these low interest rates have helped fuel this increase in price. And, Jack's told us about $1 billion in 5 months. Does that mean if these changes, we're going to start to see prices go down or flatline, or, can we expect to see that? Is there going to be bargains out there?
Look, for those people that are hoping for that, unfortunately, I will have to disappoint them. The economists predict that prices will continue to rise, as it's a very modest push. If anything, over the next 3 months, James, we're going to see a surge as buyers are rushing to secure a property and take advantage of the pre-approval that they currently have, which is with the old rules, so to speak, which means the maximum capacity is larger.
Okay, so I did see a question from Johnny, which I think you've answered that. So Johnny, just put it in the Q&A again if you didn't. But I think, Lucas, what you're saying is effectively people that have already got pre-approvals, or are you saying this policy doesn't come into effect till the end of the month, is it?
Correct. And if you already got a pre-approval, that lasts for 3 months regardless.
All right. And so for anyone new, I guess if they apply for the loan now, they potentially can get the benefit of it being underwritten by the bank under the current rules. So, that 5% decrease in the maximum borrowing, they won't have that impact them. So they can still get out there and do that.
And also, James, we have to remember Christmas is 11 weeks away. So all the buyers and sellers out there, we see a huge interest on the market. Everybody's trying to beat Christmas. Sell the property, find a property to buy. You got FOMO, low interest rates. You got good savings due to lockdown, and the listing numbers are still low. The buy numbers are still increasing. So, it all comes together. And yeah, that's why we won't see any decrease in prices.
All right, good. Johnny gave us a thumbs up. So I think that means you've answered his question. But, does that... So I guess I understand. I think you've explained as to how it is with the market, that ultimately you're saying, no, prices are still going to go up because we've got Christmas, we've got FOMO, we've got the fact that people are rushing to get in there. We've got lower inventory levels, as we've talked about for months now. But, these banking changes, are they going to, do they affect everyone? Are they going to be a big handbrake in the sort of more medium term, do you expect?
Look, not really, James. Some first home buyers, if anything, will be affected because sometimes the first home buyers do try to borrow their max capacity. But when you look at the percentage of loans that happen, we hardly ever go to our max. Then you've got investors, because they've got equity, they've got other properties to use, they won't get affected. And I'll give you another example. A buyer that's wanting to borrow $600,000 from a borrowing capacity of $1.2 million, this change will have absolutely no effect on them at all.
Okay. So, I guess what you're saying is, when you typically do that, how much can I borrow? Very few of us actually borrow that maximum amount. We often say, okay, well, that's good, either because ourselves, we want a bit of a buffer there, or we don't need to spend that much, or we've got equity elsewhere, or mum and dad help out, whatever it is. So, I guess that's important as well. For those of you that have got help from the bank of mum and dad, this may not be an issue. Those of you that were really scratching together and scraping the bottom of the barrel, this could affect you. So, as Lucas said, if ever there was a time to hurry up, now is that time, because you can still, potentially access that lower buffer rate and borrow right up to that maximum amount that you can. So, don't unnecessarily rush, still make a good purchase decision. But I think, now's the time to give yourself a bit of a kick up the arse and get into gear if you're ever sort of procrastinating and you need to borrow every cent that you can. Okay, Greg, I know we were talking about it last week and you were quite excited when it got announced on Friday. Victorian Homebuyer Fund. It sounds exciting. It sounds like it's going to be a big thing. Can you perhaps, give us a 30-second helicopter, 45-second, whatever you need, quick overview for everyone on the line? What is it? What are the, what's it offering?
Okay, well, it's essentially the Victorian government is taking the position of mum and dad, bank of mum and dad, for some people that don't have that that luxury. And what they're doing is, if you can only have a deposit of 5%, they will chip in up to 25% in equity. And as a quid pro quo, they will own 25 or up to 25% of the property. That's the basic of what it's all about.
Okay, so very much, I guess what you're saying is, some of the larger families where, siblings or cousins or uncles or aunts might jointly buy the property with you.
Yep.
The Victorian government says, don't worry if you don't have a big family. Don't worry if you're just an Aussie like me and you don't have that big extended family. You've got no relatives. Lucas can rattle off about 30 names that are his close relatives. If you're like me and you don't, effectively you're saying the government will be my brother, will be my uncle, will be my friend.
There are limited numbers, but it's still 3,000 places.
What are you trying to say? I earn too much money or something?
So they're setting up 3,000 plus people they're going to be assisting. Now that's still a lot of people. There's other conditions that are attached to it, is incomes. So for instance, you can't earn more than 120,000 as an individual, or as a couple 200,000. And there are also limits on the price of the property. So for metropolitan, which is Melbourne up to Geelong, 950,000 you can buy a property, or 600,000 in regional Victoria. So there's, I think it's a scheme that's been run in other states quite successfully. And obviously, the value of real estate's good. So I think it's a pretty good thing for out there.
Okay. So, obviously that's going to help any of those buyers that are in that pool. We were just talking about, I guess Lucas was talking about your borrowing capacity potentially becoming less.
Yep.
So whilst I was encouraging everyone, Greg, to jump on board if they needed to max out and buy now, potentially if they do miss out, this could help them, albeit they're now going to own their property with the government. So any of you who are out there who are anti-vaxxers or anti-government people, Greg, I don't want to rant from you about that. Obviously, perhaps you don't want to have the state government jointly owning your property with you. But all in all, I think, that's a pretty exciting opportunity for those of you that could use that extra bit of help. And, I think it's not as limited as I would have thought, Greg. Like those income levels are relatively generous. $950,000 for a Metro Melbourne property. I think there's a lot of people out there that could benefit from this.
Absolutely. I think it's, some people have gone, well, you always get doomsday sayers, and there's different opinions. But overall, I think it's a pretty good thing, and it will help those that don't have that ability to get into the market, which I think is a good thing.
Okay, good. All right. And I assume, Greg, in terms of how do people apply for this, how do they do it? Being a government scheme, they did the fanfare of announcing it on Friday, but we're still waiting for the paperwork and how you actually do it, I guess, to come over the coming weeks.
There hasn't been anything specific. It's just been an announcement. So we've got to see how and where and how and what we can do to get how these people can get involved.
All right, good. So any of you that are interested about it, drop us a line and Greg can reach out to you as soon as we know more details. Otherwise, we might just make a note of this, and once we've got a bit more information on it and how you apply and the details about it, we'll bring it up again at a later session and let you guys know. Okay, so I can just see we've hit the top of the hour, but before we go, for those of you that are investors, I said that this will be important for everyone. I know it has been a tough year being an investor myself. I don't even look at what my rents are at the moment because I cry too much. Interesting, a friend of mine yesterday who brought a property with me. We've got, he's on top of me, I'm below in the same building. His tenant just gave it vacating notice. He asked me, what rent are you getting? And I said, you know what? I don't know, because it'd be too upsetting knowing what I used to get. Now, you might think that's a little bit reckless by me. We talk about it all the time. As long as you've got a good property manager, it's okay to know. I am on top of it. I just don't like to know how much rents are down. But with all that in mind and that negativity, Greg, despite all of these lockdowns, we've actually started to see again the rental market start to turn again, and vacancy rates are stabilising, potentially even going down a little bit in the main market.
Absolutely. I think, even this is nationally as well as Melbourne, which was quite astounding. The fact that we've been locked down, I think people would have thought that the rental market would have plummeted even further, but it's sort of stabilised, still higher than anywhere else, but still at 3.4%, which is it's not too bad. However, there's quite a lot of signs that things will get a lot better. And that's, if you'd like me to go through those, it'll give you some enthusiasm on your
definitely. And I think just before you do, for those of you that are, still didn't quite grapple what I said at the start about information versus knowledge, this is where we're talking about, Greg's just given you that information. We've talked about that. And what he's about to do is give you the knowledge and break this down in terms of, how do you understand what's going out there? How do you look forward to understand what factors are driving this and how and why things might change? Now, it's not going to be perfect because predictions never are, and the future you can't predict, but this gives you a good understanding why, and you can then watch and monitor for these. And when you see these certain triggers happening, take whatever action is that you need to. Greg, break it down for them. Tell them what's happening out there and what you expect to potentially, move the needle on this.
Well, I think, we got promises. We've always been talked about things that people will be coming in. So we'll get to that in a second. But what is also driving the rental market is people that can't, as we're saying, housing affordability is getting too high on certain things. And a lot of those people are continuing to rent, and that's actually pushing the rental market and keeping it stable as well. So that's one local thing before they say, yeah, we're waiting for. However, with all the vaccination things, borders will be reopening, which means they're talking about bringing international students back in. Biggest markets for international students, Melbourne, Sydney. So those are the two biggest things. So already we've got these market drivers of locals renting as opposed to buying because of the certain constraints. We now start seeing, as soon as international students come in, both Melbourne and Sydney, that will start putting pressure on rentals to go up again. And that's and also people coming in from locals. So, people getting local Aussies who are stuck overseas, so not just international people. They'll be coming in and they're likely to go back into rental properties as soon as they're able to get back into the country. So those sort of drivers should see us, the rental market start increasing in the next few months, which will be awesome. Okay,
good. And hopefully I look forward to that as well, so that I can start looking at my rental levels again.
Yeah.
And what about South Africans? Are we going to get them out of the country, or are they coming back in?
We're not allowed in. So that's the problem. They just go, it doesn't matter whether we've had 10 jabs or no jabs. They just go, no, you're not allowed in. And we're too political. So get out.
So someone obviously is going to lose their job for letting you in.
Yeah. So that's where we're at.
All right, good. Look, I apologize because I can see there is a ton of questions. I was trying to go through them all. Just then, I did shoot a few of you some answers there that I typed out and referred you back to some more information. So I will go through in detail. As I said, I was hoping we could answer some more, but I gave up because I can see there's just a ton of questions. So I really appreciate all of you guys getting involved. As I said, we will reach out to you individually and hopefully answer those questions for you. As always, feel free to join us again next week if you'd rather just, use this forum to get your answers. So I'm going to cut it there, as I said, and I want to just give you a few closing thoughts before everyone goes and gets stuck back into their day. Now, today, we've gone through a ton of information. We've talked about some key concepts, and I hope we've delivered real value to you. However, unfortunately, I just know through experience that most of you are going to do this. You're going to do nothing. Now, what do I mean by doing nothing? I've talked about actionable knowledge. I've gone through the concept. We've shared what's been going on around the countryside. We've broken it down. We've answered all your questions. But for most of you, you're going to say, that was great. You're going to get on with your busy lives and you're not going to make any changes. Now, for a lot of you, that's okay. But for those of you that are trying to move forward on that journey of home ownership, creating that next home for you, whether it be your first home, another investment property, moving out of mum and dad's home for the first time, wherever it is, if you've been trying to do that for a while and you continue to fail, then you need to make a change, because if you don't make a change, then don't expect to get a different result. So what I really, really hope, as a bare minimum, those of you that resonate with that do, is take on board what we've said, go and make those changes and get out there and hopefully get those results that you're looking for. Take on board the concept of actionable knowledge, take on board what we've been discussing, make those changes and achieve those goals that you want. But I want to give you an alternate, which is path B. Let us help you. So as I said, we've got a number of different businesses. So we're well equipped to help you, whatever it is that you need assistance with on that creating home journey that you're on. So, this is what the smart people do. This is what the rich do. A lot of people talk about it. They don't try to save time by doing things themselves. They find the experts, they find the people with the experience, they leverage that experience and get and achieve those goals earlier. You know, just think about it. Would you prefer to be owning your first home today or next year? You know, would you prefer to be collecting rental income today or next year? Now, I know it's easy for all of you to answer that, but you might say, how do you get there? Well, you need to partner with someone that can help you through that journey, can share their experience. You can leverage that experience and get out there. So what have I done? Well, I believe that we can help you wherever you are. And I guarantee that if you invest your time with us, you will get value out of it and you can move forward. But it's not going to be for everyone. So before I tell you how we can move forward together, I just want to be clear. You know, you need to be prepared to, get involved, take action, roll up your sleeves, understand the concept of actionable knowledge so that, I don't want to be doing everything for you. Don't get me wrong. I want to, give you the skills, give you that information so that you can turn it into knowledge and you can take that action and do that steps yourself, and ultimately you've got to be prepared to roll up your sleeves and get involved and do that work. So if that sounds like you, then the next logical and most important step that I believe you should do is I'm asking you to invest 15 to 20 minutes time with us. That's all I believe you need to invest to still seriously get a real value and have an achievable outcome. So what I've done in that vein, I've set aside time in everyone's diaries over the next 5 days just to be booked for these sessions. And a typical session, as I said, it's about 15 to 20 minutes. That's all we're asking for. We can do it through FaceTime, Zoom, WhatsApp, just a normal phone call even. It doesn't really matter. But really, we want to just talk with you. We want to understand where you are, answer any further questions that you might have that were too personal to bring up today. And then really just see if you're that right fit for us. Because as I said, not everyone is going to be the right fit. And then really talk about the steps moving forward and, give you some takeaways that you can put and implement straight away, regardless of whether you want to work forward, and then talk about some more medium-term strategies that we can work together with you. So I guarantee you that if you want to make a change, you understand what we've been talking about today, and you want to move forward, you want to achieve those goals sooner, then if you invest 15 to 20 minutes with us, you will leave that having some action, being able to employ straight away some of these strategies that we talk about, understand that concept and go out there and make a change. So, if that does sound like you, well, it's really, really simple. All you got to do to do it, jump in the chat. You should see a link there. If you're on Facebook, I believe the booking link is somewhere in the comments. If you've joined us on Zoom, your web browser should have been redirected to the booking page. And lastly, for those of you that are unsure at the moment as to your availability, I will send you a follow-up email after today's session, which will have a link to book those. But just remember, there are limited spaces. So jump on now if it does sound like you and book one of those sessions. Because as I said, it is what you can invest the smallest amount of time to really, really expect to get an actual result and an outcome. And I guarantee that if you do put the time into this, you will get value out of it and you will be able to move forward and faster with it. Now, before I leave you, I want to just share an experience that I had in July this year. So this was before a long lockdown here in Melbourne and also Sydney. And I got away for 4 nights up to Hamilton Island. Fantastic spot. Weather is great in the middle of winter and had a really, really good time with the family. Now, on the second day, my eldest daughter said to me, "Dad, I'd love to go and watch the sunrise tomorrow morning. Can we get up early, run to the top of that mountain, watch the sunrise, and then come back down before everyone wakes up to have breakfast?" I said, "Sounds like a fantastic idea. Really looking forward to it. Let's do it." Now, later that night, just before I went to bed, I thought, better set my alarm so we get up so we don't miss the sunrise. I had a quick check on Google, and what did it say? 4:45, it told me the sun was going to rise. And I was like, oh, that's one of the joys about holidays is sleeping in. But I thought, no, that's fine. Let's make the sacrifice because I know I'll enjoy it. So I set my alarm. And what felt like no more than 5 minutes later, you know how annoying that alarm is. It's going beep, 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 beep. And what did I do? I did what I know all of you do, and you hit that snooze button. And I threw my phone down in disgust. I rolled over. 8 or 9 minutes later, it went off again. And I thought, you know what? I'm tired. I could see Isabella. She was still asleep. No one else was waking up. It was dark. It looked like it was going to be cold outside. And I hit stop and I rolled over again. But about a minute later, I thought, you know what? No, I've got to make the sacrifices. She was so excited. I know we'll enjoy it. Just get up. So I jumped out of bed. I woke her up. We threw our clothes on. We ran to the top of the mountain. We had a great time. We took that photo. You can see the joy on her face. It was a fantastic experience. We really, really enjoyed it. And it was one of those great memories that I know we'll both enjoy for the rest of our lives. So, those of you with young kids will know that the time flies past. They seem like they're only a baby before they're off wanting to have boyfriends and, you're no longer cool anymore. But it was a really, really good experience. So what I want you to think about, and the reason why I told you this story is just remember how easy it is in life to do what I did and just hit the snooze button, say, I'll do it later, I'll do it later, I'll do it another day, no, I'll do it next week, I'll do it next month. But it's the people like me that took the action, got up, got to the top of the mountain, had this great experience, made those memories, and really got the joy and the value out of it. So for those of you that haven't booked one of the sessions yet, just think about it just like I did here. Don't say later, because later equals never. Take that action. Don't hit the snooze button. Book one of those. Get out there. Get involved, because I guarantee if you actually participate, you take that action, then you'll be the one having these great experiences, achieving those goals, smashing the timelines that you set yourself there, and you'll be the one sitting back, enjoying yourself in your new home while everyone else is still hitting the snooze buttons. So if that does sound like you, as I said, very easy, jump on now, book one of those sessions. They're only 15 to 20 minutes, and I guarantee that you will get value out of it. All right, so that is it. We've gone about 10 minutes over time. Thank you very much, everyone, for participating today. I love the involvement. I love the enthusiasm. The questions were great. I even saw you guys getting involved on the chat. So thank you, everyone. There were so many familiar faces, those of you that join us every week. Appreciate it, as well as I saw a lot of new names and faces there. So those of you that have joined us for the first time, I hope you got value out of today's session. And thank you very much for joining us. We do this every single week if you're unsure. So every single Wednesday, 2:30, rain, hail, earthquakes, or shine, we will be here. So make sure you join us again. Whenever you're free, come every week, next month, next quarter, or even next year, because it's not too far away. And once again, thank you from me and everyone on the panel for giving us your time today. And we look forward to seeing you again very soon in the future.